There's no give up.
Stand
give
up
up,
and
give
applaud
up,
this film.
Give up and up.
Stand up. Get on your feet for these farmers, for these filmmakers, for the people who are doing the hard work every day to grow our food. I am so honored to be here again with Josh and Rebecca. They are true heroes and heroines. They inspire me every day. I've watched this film more times than anybody in this room, and it always makes me cry.
Not more than us.
Well, this room.
We've watched it a lot.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Thank you, Danny.
I'm so pleased to see so many people still here. If anyone leaves, I will prevent it. I will lay down in the driveway. Let's give another huge round of applause for the film, please.
Thank you.
We're going to have a kick-ass party after this, but before, we're going to talk. And I think some things need to be said. Josh and Rebecca, can you talk about why you decided to follow up Kiss the Ground, amazing movie, with Common Ground?
I mean, Kiss the Ground was a great starting point. It talks about the carbon cycle. For most people, it actually introduced them to the idea of biosequestration, which is funny because we learned about this in science as a kid, but we didn't learn about it in the context of climate change. So I think for a lot of people, Kiss the Ground was a huge wake-up call that there is hope and that there is a pathway for how we can stabilize the climate. But we stopped short in Kiss the Ground of really pulling back the curtain of what's stopping us from making this transition. And so we knew that we had to take it further. And thank God, after Kiss the Ground came out, this gentleman had seen it. He became a rancher. He was a billionaire. And
Just happened to
be a billionaire. And he called up Gabe Brown and he said, tell me about these Tickells. Are they any good? Because they didn't tell the whole story. And so we were so lucky to have the opportunity to tell any story that we wanted this time. And that's what Common Ground is. It's us unfiltered, sharing from our hearts what this movement is for us and for the group of people that made this film. And so I think we had to tell what's stopping us, and then we had to show, even since Kiss the Ground in the last 4 years, all of the progress, like all of the results.
So much progress.
Right, just like it's such a huge impact. It's so different from than what it was 10 years ago. Like we didn't have the data, we didn't have the agreement yet that this was the way forward. Even 4 years ago when Kiss the Ground came out, it was still news to most people. So now people are starting to get understanding of it, but this goes more deeply into how we actually do it.
Josh, so much hope and inspiration comes from this film, and it fills me. I mean, I get all tingly. We all know I'm a foodie nerd, but like, what surprised you? I mean, I know you're both so deep into this work. What surprised you from this?
Well, I think in making the film, what surprised us was the depth of the subject. This is kind of like, by the way, wanted to send a big shout out to those of you wearing Common Ground hats out there.
Yes.
There's nothing better than talking to an audience and seeing people wear the hat. By the way, that hat went viral on TikTok, so you're like, you're right in the flow. Yeah, now everybody put them back on. Yeah, it's great. I think what's amazing about making these films is the depth of the subject. The deeper you go, the deeper it gets. It's like a fractal. It keeps opening up. And when we were done with Kiss the Ground, we were done with making soil movies forever. Until the second soil movie came along. And then we were done with Common Ground. We were like, we're so done. Until we started making what is now becoming the third movie, Groundswell.
And then never again. No more movies with the word ground.
Yeah.
It's just too confusing. It's like naming your kids.
I will tell you, we're just in the beginning phases of Groundswell. We're laying the groundwork for that film. It's not intentional. And what's incredible is even in 3.5 years, 4 years since we began the journey on Common Ground, how much more depth has opened up, especially internationally.
Right.
How many more projects are coming online? the vastness of the projects too. It's, part of our goal in Common Ground was to show scale. We didn't want anybody to watch the movie
Thank you,
and walk away and say, oh, this is not going to be able to feed us, right? Feed the world. Now, with Groundswell entering the beginning of the third film, we really are entering the conversation of how to nourish 10 billion people regeneratively. And that's a very exciting, And that, of course, goes into culture, how to regenerate culture, how to regenerate entire culture ecosystem connections. So it's deep. It's deep.
So deep.
I'm thinking we're going to stop at 3 films.
Well, I love a trilogy. Who doesn't love a trilogy? But I want to talk to you both. I mean, I think the last time we spoke, we talked about, the influence of being parents and having children must influence you both a lot. I am a daughter, obviously, of someone, right? So how does that influence the work? And what do you think about as you're moving forward with being parents and wanting to create this better world or wanting to highlight this better world?
Yeah, I mean, I think for both of us, we had 2 children in the process of making these films. And I have to say, everyone says that the day that their children are born is the happiest day of their life. For me, suddenly my life was extended 100 years into the future. And so I would say that that day for me was filled with a great sense of accountability that I didn't have before. It changed my lifespan, and it changed what I was committed to and the time frame of what I was committed to. It made my work way more urgent. Like our work, we have to, the pressure went from here to here, and it was like, we have got to do this. We have got to reach everyone, and we have to nail it. No pressure, literally felt like the weight of the world on our shoulders.
You are nailing it. Josh?
Rebecca's 100% right. I spend a lot of time, I think we both do, thinking about the future. And like anybody in the climate movement, and I've been in this movement, believe it or not, for 42 years. I got a protest sign thrust in my hand at 6 years old, and that was my entree into the deep green ecology movement. So spending 4 decades in the movement, I've talked to a lot of people. I think we all think about the future a lot, mostly dark thoughts, right? And so what Rebecca and I have discovered in doing this work, and part of why we're so deep into it, is there is an unbelievably positive future trajectory for our species. And we're in the window of opportunity to make that future happen right now. A lot of the climate science is like, it's too late, it's done, da-da-da-da. Not at all. We have an incredible window. But that window is not going to last forever. So when you hold your baby for the first time and you look into their eyes and you go, wow, okay, this is it. Like, I don't want to be in a conversation with you at the end of my life where you ask me, why, if we knew how to change the trajectory, didn't we do it? Right? I don't want to have that conversation. I want to have the conversation of, maybe we just made it, but we made it, right? What was the soft landing for our species? I work backward from that. Every day when I wake up, and I don't want to do this, and there's lots of days when that happens. Not because I don't love my wife and my partner or my kids or the work. It's just, there's bad news, and sometimes I want to not do this, But I remember the conversation that I want to have at the end of my life. And I'm like, okay, let's get to work. Let's go.
Round of applause, people. What I love about this couple is that they are not dystopian. They continue to be hopeful in the face of a lot of despair, a lot of hopelessness. And what you have done is inspire so many people, including me. I'm wondering what your recommendations are for helping...
If you keep crying, I'm going to cry a lot.
I've been
This is
crying all
gonna
day,
be
dude.
like it's gonna be like a Super Bowl beer commercial on steroids, okay?
Nose running. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Allergies, guys. Texas.
Maybe we just
only
need to
it
cry
was.
together tonight.
I'm wondering how you give advice to these audiences that you're constantly talking to how to engage more deeply with food policy, to be this activist in your home, in your community, in everything that you do.
I mean, I'll speak for myself, and then I'll share my advice. But you know, I had to not just be a person who talked about this on a stage to people in other parts of the world. You know, we live in an agricultural community in Ventura County, which turns out has some of the highest pesticide, herbicide, fungicide spraying in the United States,
Yeah.
within the closest proximity to schools and residences, including ours, where we made this film. As a matter of fact, is a zone that's colored orange on the Environmental Working Group's map because of the amount of exposure we have to pesticide overdrift. So I can't go out there and talk about it and ignore what's happening in my backyard. You know, yes, it's great to be able to talk to people, but my neighbors are farmers that use pesticides, and those are the people that I had to learn how to talk to.
Yeah.
And so that's for us part of the work that we do is, you know, how we learn to tell these films, to speak to other people in other communities is by speaking to the people in our communities. So, you know, it's been a learning curve of speaking to my neighbors who are farmers, of getting California to put notification systems in place, which we finally achieved and is happening now in California, which is a huge breakthrough, especially for the migrant workers, mainly migrant workers who are actually working in the fields and who are having their human rights violated every single day. I mean, that just can't be ignored anymore. So I'm taking an active role within my kids' school. We've changed their bread. It's now organic. We're trying to get that in the whole county. You know, that's how we get involved. You start with your backyard. You start with your community, and you look at how is my community a part of the degenerative system, and how can I be part of making this a regenerative system? And that's our role, and it looks different for everybody. Kind of like regeneration, one of the practices of regeneration is farming in context. Well, we also have to eat in context, and we have to stand up for regeneration in context. And so for us, that's in our farming community.
Stand up for regeneration. I love it. Josh?
I was speaking to a friend who's a climate activist recently, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to go to this little meeting that we have twice a month, and I'm going to try and redirect the meeting to be more dialogue focused and less PowerPoint focused." And she said, "But it's nothing compared to like making movies." And I said, "Why did you say that?" And she goes, "Because it's only 10 people." And I go, "But any one of those 10 people can have a conversation that turns into a ripple, that's an eddy that touches the most important person at the most important juncture of making a decision for our world." You know, Rebecca and I have a saying like, we make a film for one person, not for the millions that'll see it. And a good example of that is our film, The Big Fix. It was about an oil spill. We made it the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And the film was actually banned in the US. Netflix wouldn't show it. They showed it in Canada, they showed it in France, they showed it everywhere else. They wouldn't show it in the US. But the Supreme Court Justice of the United States got the film. At the time it was on a DVD. And he said, "I'm gonna have a meeting with a little company called BP," which was the one that caused the oil spill. And he said, "Listen, we, i.e. the Pentagon and the United States government, have to sever all future contracts with your company until you can meet your own safety requirements." That film cost us, I don't know, $500,000 to make, but it cost BP $3.5 billion. And it radically changed oil policy in the United States. One person did that. And it was not the person who even came to the screening. So if you're meeting with one person, if you're meeting with 10 people, if you're meeting with 50 people, if you're meeting with your mom and talking about this, that is the most important work you can do. I don't want anyone to downgrade your work as an environmentalist. has nothing to do with the number of people that you talk to. It has to do with the power of the conversation and your commitment to that conversation. And remembering that every single human being is actually an environmentalist. I don't know anyone who can live without the environment. They're working on it in California and a little bit here in Texas. But seriously, to reawaken that awareness in another human being, that's your gift. That's your power. Don't forget that.
It is such a gift, and it is such a power. One of the things I like, woo, come on. I know you're tired. There
You
are
work
drinks
for us.
come.
You're not
There are
allowed to
drinks
scream.
come.
Thank you, though.
My final sort of thought about this movie is that you have been able to provide so many resources to people, so many great resources. And not every documentary does that. If documentaries 10 years ago didn't do that, when 15 years ago didn't do that, why was that? I know why it's important to you, but talk a little bit more about it.
This is a great question. No one's ever asked us this.
Yes, I have.
Well, not me. Did you ask me? I don't remember. Listen, this is what's different about it. This is why we do this. It's very hard to make an advocacy documentary. People in the entertainment business don't like it. We're breaking all the rules. We have an opinion, and we're putting it out there. A couple of people have gotten away with it, like Michael Moore, for instance. We're like, well, if he can do it, then we can do it. But ours tend to be less, I'd say the emphasis is on the solutions and not on the gotcha entertainment. Sure. So it puts us in a unique situation where we have to kind of straddle the line of let's not be propaganda for this thing that we know is really great for humanity. We're gonna make an art film that's balanced and fair, not neutral at all, But what are we gonna do? Are we gonna interview Gabe Brown and then interview the Monsanto representative? So for us, it wasn't a choice. We are going firmly into advocacy documentary. Hollywood has to deal with us, but we have to deal with them. And and it's a dance. It requires a lot of a huge team. We have a huge team that works so hard to get this out. We're basically our own studio because Hollywood doesn't make films like this.
Right.
So we had to build a studio so that we could get this message out there and to be sitting here in front of you because it wouldn't have happened if we had waited for some executive to say yes to us.
Thank goodness for you,
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the birth of a new genre of storytelling. And I think to name it and call it and own it as such is also to own our power as a movement. Because maybe up until 15 years ago, documentaries had two acts. The bad news and then the worst news. And then the end. And we have an accountability. We have an accountability.
That's the bad news right there. That's every other documentary.
We have an accountability to the future as journalists to investigate a future trajectory that can have a positive outcome. That is a valid story, right? We're not investigating something. We're investigating the future. And that's okay. It's okay to look at the future and go, we're projecting into something that doesn't exist, right? We're playing in a realm that's yet to be created. So why don't we look at the possibility that we want versus sort of the dead end that we've been told is reality. And I think that's, when you do that, you start to look at resources like, okay, great. So now we've investigated the future. We've shown you if you do Gabe Brown and you do this thing in Idaho and you do this thing and that Leah Penniman is doing in upstate New York, and you put it all together, you have an amazing future. Oh, you need resources. Great. Here's the top 5 things. Here's a QR code. Here's a website. Here's an Instagram account. And then you realize, there's no end to the hunger for that information. And that's what a movement is. It's sharing information. So.
Josh and Rebecca, thank you for teaching us that there is no end. There is no end to hope. There is no end to the inspiration that you have both provided. This has been an incredible, incredible day. It is not over. We still have so much more ahead in terms of celebrating with this wonderful couple who I adore. They're two of my favorite people.
We adore you too. Great job, Danny. You've worked so hard today. Everybody's
Great job.
Amazing work. Thank you for bringing us all together, for bringing the focus to food, for making this festival worthwhile. You have done that, and we acknowledge you and are forever grateful to you.
Everyone sit down. All of the thanks for tonight's reception, you should all know, goes to Common Ground and these two wonderful people. I love them. I had to say it again. I want to thank the Food Tank team, including my incredible co-founder, Bernard Pollock, which nothing would exist without him.
Yay, Bernie!
Hey, Bernie!
Woo!
Elena Seeley, who just keeps me on track. Kenzie Wade, who is amazing. Alyssa Fernandez, who is a new part of our team. And so many volunteers who have helped us out for this event and so many other events. A huge, huge thank you to Andre Martinez and Mode and Jose Cardenas for ensuring today's event ran flawlessly. They deserve such a huge round of applause. Woo! I need to do this one last thing and remind everyone that I am Joyce Nierenberg's daughter. I miss her, I wish she was here, and I want to thank all of you for being here today.